What's up everybody, welcome to HeroWatch, the series where each episode I break down a different new hero candidate for the upcoming Overwatch 2. Today's candidate is the highly anticipated monster of a man, MAUGA. This Samoan heavy assault unit already has deep ties to the existing Overwatch story and cast, some interesting development backstory, and is by far a huge fan favorite. Oh, and did I mention that he might also be a cyborg? This is Master EN Gamer, and before we get into it, I'd like to mention that if you enjoy this video, then be sure to subscribe and choke that bell icon, as doing so both helps out my channel and keeps you up to date on all future Overwatch content. But now, let's check out MAUGA, the Talon Heavy Assault. As usual, let's start on the story side. Unlike most new hero candidates, we actually have a ton of canon backstory for MAUGA already. This comes from Baptiste's What You Left Behind short story, which released in June of 2019. In it, we learn that MAUGA is a Talon soldier who was not only in the same squad as Baptiste, but also a very close companion of his. They met during their first days in Talon, and Baptiste quickly took notice of MAUGA due to his massive stature and overbearing personality. MAUGA promised Baptiste that if they stuck together, they'd make it straight to the top, and forever after that, the two became an unstoppable duo. Throughout the short story, both characters are shown to have a deep respect for and understanding of each other, even when they don't always see eye to eye. However, Baptiste and MAUGA's time together in Talon came to an end when a particular mission in Monte Cristi went awry and resulted in severe collateral damage and many civilian casualties. Seeing his squad mates bask in the spoils of such wanton death and destruction led Baptiste to snap and desert Talon entirely. While attempting to flee in a fishing boat, Baptiste was confronted by MAUGA, who tried to get him to stay. In a brief heart-to-heart moment, it's revealed that MAUGA wasn't actually willing to kill Baptiste, despite that being the punishment for trying to leave Talon. Disobeying a direct order from their captain, MAUGA let him go, with his only request being that Baptiste call him when he's ready to come back home. Fast forwarding 4 years, we reach the present day events of What You Left Behind. While Baptiste is volunteering at a clinic in his hometown of Port-au-Paix, MAUGA and Talon analyst Trung Le Wen ambush Baptiste and rope him into helping them on a nearby mission. Throughout the short story, both MAUGA and Baptiste reminisce in their own ways about the countless times they worked together as a team back in Talon. MAUGA in particular seems to long for those days to return, and hence is why he pulled Baptiste into their mission despite Wen's objections. Baptiste, on the other hand, while tempted by the simplicity of the life he used to live, fights the urge to go back to his old self. He ultimately ends up escaping and foils MAUGA and Wen's mission in the process. However, while making his getaway, Baptiste is confronted one final time by MAUGA in a scene reminiscent of when he previously deserted Talon 4 years prior. MAUGA even comments on this and says that he can't let him go a second time. On top of that, MAUGA by this point has seemingly lost at least some of his admiration for Baptiste, as he recklessly opens fire on him, possibly having reached a point of indifference over whether Baptiste actually lives or dies. He only lets up after Baptiste pretends to surrender, and MAUGA welcomes his friend back, only to be immediately betrayed again when Baptiste shoots a nearby fusion charging station. The resulting explosion hits MAUGA and destroys much of the pier on which he stood. After the explosion, Baptiste can't find MAUGA, or what's left of him, but later thinks to himself that he more than likely survived. And based on the other details we know about MAUGA as both a character and a hero, Baptiste is almost certainly right. Outside of Baptiste's short story, MAUGA only has one other appearance, which was in 3 of the sprays available during the Baptiste Reunion Challenge mini-event that ran following the release of the short story. And as one extra bonus trivia side note, the word MAUGA is actually Samoan for mountain, which is not only befitting of a character like MAUGA, but also indicates that he most likely hails from the island nation of Samoa. Now, beyond all the story and character implications we have for him, there is one very important bit of information we do have about MAUGA regarding his status as a playable hero, and it comes straight from the mouth of Overwatch game director Jeff Kaplan. Following the release of Sigma back in July of 2019, Jeff made this statement during a livestream interview.
We definitely wanted this to be a Talon character. We wanted to flesh out more Talon, was important to us.
Yeah.
We also wanted him to be a tank. We wanted him to be a barrier tank. because we felt like there needed to be more options than just Reinhardt and Orisa. So that was a lot of our thought. And at the time, Alyssa was working on the short story, What You Left Behind, which was the Baptiste short story. And we were developing the character of MAUGA. And we thought MAUGA was going to be this character.
Yeah.
But as the abilities started to come together, and Jeff and Josh were putting together this really fun barrier tank, we're like, this doesn't fit the personality of MAUGA at all. Because MAUGA seems very aggressive, in your face, where this is like a more deliberate, defensive, almost, dare I say, intellectual tank.
After this clip, Jeff also mentions that they still have big plans for MAUGA in the future, but didn't elaborate any further on what they'd be. This acknowledgement of MAUGA having been a hero in development really isn't surprising. Even without Jeff's comment, MAUGA has all the right details for being a new hero candidate. For starters, his visual design. His massive, larger-than-life stature immediately makes him stand out from other characters in the short story. He's more than physically capable of engaging in a fight, and even smaller details like his smile and white hair streak stick out as evidence of additional thought having been put into his appearance. All of these are indicators of him being designed as a one-day playable hero, but even more outstanding than his visual aspects is the immense amount of depth and detail they've put into his personality. Arguably, this is the most alluring part of MAUGA as a character. Despite being a blatantly sadistic sociopath, it's hard not to feel invested in his overbearing charisma. He pretends to be a big dumb brute, but in actuality is quite clever, and enjoys getting buddy-buddy with everyone he meets. He loves to relax and have carefree fun, which for him includes everything from taking a tropical vacation to ruthlessly slaughtering people. And this is where his sadistic nature becomes most evident. Save for his final encounter with Baptiste, MAUGA's violent actions never appear to be fueled by anger or any sort of negative emotion. Instead, it's quite the opposite, with him seeing death and destruction as all being part of the fun. He joined Talon to get paid and have a good time, and is totally indifferent to the harm and suffering doing so brings to others. In his eyes, there are no good people, so he just enjoys life in any way he can, which for him includes hurting others. If I'm being honest, him being a sadistic sociopath could actually be seen as a factor against him ever being a future hero. Because, based on what we know about him so far, MAUGA may in fact be the least redeemable character in the entire Overwatch universe. Every other villain we know of, be they a playable hero or just a background story character, has some sort of redeeming quality. For some, it's a tragic backstory, for others it's an evil yet understandable philosophy, but with MAUGA, he's just a ruthless monster. Sociopaths in general are difficult to empathize with, but after all the remorseless murder and violence we've seen MAUGA commit, I'm not sure it's even possible for him to be redeemed. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with having a playable hero who's an inhuman monster, but Blizzard always tries to make Overwatch characters feel lighthearted and relatable in some way or another. While lots of people are already in love with MAUGA for being the demon that he is, it would be a bit uncharacteristic of Blizzard to just add a purely villainous hero like this. The fact that they were evidently planning to release MAUGA back in 2019 is actually really fascinating in my eyes because of this. They must have planned some sort of character development or backstory to compensate for his monstrous personality, but with him being postponed, we have yet to see whatever that ended up being. The main route I could see them taking to try and further humanize him would be through Baptiste, as he's the sole individual with whom MAUGA has shown even the tiniest shred of compassion. But it's also possible that Blizzard would give MAUGA the Junkrat and Roadhog treatment, where they shower the character in-game with goofy quirks and cosmetics to obscure the fact that, in the story, they're actually pretty horrific human beings. For MAUGA, we may have already even seen a bit of this with the reunion challenge sprays, where MAUGA is portrayed much more lightheartedly than in the actual short story. But moving past MAUGA's character and personality, let's get on to his potential kit and abilities in-game. Here once again, we have an abnormally high amount of information to go on. Not only do we have the descriptors of all his weapons and abilities in Baptiste's short story, but also the abilities of the Talon Heavy Assault unit from Retribution and Storm Rising, which are the same type of soldier as MAUGA. So starting with the short story, in Baptiste's flashbacks, MAUGA is described as wielding dual machine guns that are each the size of a full-grown man. On top of that, he possesses body armor with back-mounted coolant tanks. Later in the story, when storming St. Clair's mansion, MAUGA is described as also wielding an energy shield, which he can hold in one hand while still firing one of his machine guns, and in one instance is seen causing bullets to ricochet. Beyond the physical description of MAUGA's gear, Baptiste also mentions a time where he crushed a man's throat through combat armor and describes MAUGA as being like a demon when in combat. For the most part, the abilities described in What You Left Behind match the design of the Talon Heavy Assault unit, with the main exception being MAUGA's energy shield. Looking at the PvE unit though, in Retribution and Storm Rising we see them also possessing a melee knockback as well as Reinhardt's charge ability. Additionally, the coolant tanks on their backs serve as a weak spot. So altogether, these are the collective gear and abilities that MAUGA could faithfully use in his kit. In actuality, he likely won't utilize all of them, but these do give us a rough idea of what he's capable of. While it probably goes without saying, MAUGA is most likely going to be a tank hero, as it fits with his immense size and the qualities he possesses in the story. But there are some additional things worth addressing when it comes to his kit. First is that he may or may not actually end up having a shield or barrier. Based on what Jeff said back at the time of Sigma's release, MAUGA was the working character for the Talon barrier tank that Blizzard wanted to add. However, the actual kit didn't end up fitting MAUGA, so they instead created Sigma. While it's entirely possible for Blizzard to make another Talon barrier tank in the future, I wouldn't be surprised to see them steer MAUGA's eventual kit in a much different direction so as to make something that both better fits his personality and remains distinct from the kit of Sigma. There are certainly ways to utilize an energy shield outside of the standard barrier mechanics we've already seen in Overwatch, such as the ability I designed in my MAUGA hero concept video, which I recommend you check out after watching this video, but basically it seems like MAUGA is less likely to end up being a new barrier tank due to the release of Sigma and Blizzard's interest in designing a more fitting kit for him. Another thing to point out though is that, despite everything we've seen so far about MAUGA's kit and abilities, there's technically no guarantee that he'll end up adhering to any of it. While this could always happen due to Blizzard just coming up with a completely different idea that they want to go with, there's also a chance that the character of MAUGA we get in-game won't be quite the same person we've seen so far. The reason I say this is because of what happens to him at the end of Baptiste's short story. While Baptiste believes that MAUGA survived the fusion charger explosion, we know that it must have dealt quite a bit of damage. Enough at least to have definitely killed Baptiste if it weren't for his immortality field. So, assuming that MAUGA did survive the explosion, he may not have survived all in one piece. It seems at least possible that MAUGA could end up going through a Genji-esque character arc, where he barely survived the explosion and comes out the other end having undergone some kind of cybernetic reconstruction. Not only would this be a somewhat unexpected twist, but it could play heavily into the falling out he is likely to have with Baptiste. While it seems that MAUGA's appreciation of Baptiste was already slipping in What You Left Behind, nearly dying at the hands of his old Talon buddy might push MAUGA to some sort of breaking point. And with Baptiste having been the only person MAUGA seemed to ever truly care about, this opens up a whole host of possible outcomes. He could become an even more monstrous and violent person, and if he does end up going through some kind of cybernetic reconstruction, his ability potential would skyrocket as well. Who knows what kind of weapons and tools he'd have up his sleeve after being rebuilt by Talon. Now, admittedly, I don't think there is any need for Blizzard to turn MAUGA into a cyborg. From a character standpoint, his design and capabilities are already cool enough for him to work as a hero in-game, and I'd even go so far as to say that turning him into a cyborg could actually waste some of the great attributes they've already established for him. But it's certainly something to consider, as the ending of What You Left Behind certainly left things open enough to take his character in a number of different directions. But the important thing to focus on is that he has potential, and a lot of it. So now let's jump on over to MAUGA's hero candidate score. Boasting a fantastic visual design, endearing personality, more than enough combat abilities to fill a whole hero kit, and a fan favorite status in the community, I'm sure that none of you will be surprised to see me give MAUGA a 5 out of 5 on the scale of new hero probability. In fact, at the time of me recording this, I'd go so far as to say that MAUGA is actually the single most likely character to one day join the roster. Discounting Sojourn, of course, since she's already confirmed to be a hero in Overwatch 2. For MAUGA, so far all we've got is Jeff's ambiguous big plans, but I think it's safe to say that those will include making MAUGA playable someday. And until then, make sure you check out my MAUGA hero concept video if you haven't already, which will be linked in both the description and cards on screen. Also, let me know your thoughts on MAUGA as a new hero by dropping a comment down below. Subscribe, choke that bell, follow me on Twitter at MasterIanGamer, and check out my Discord server to never miss any future Overwatch news and content. If you'd like to support my videos, then you can hit that join button down below to become a channel member and unlock some cool rewards like the people you see here. Otherwise, this is MasterIanGamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.